أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Verse number 282 of Surah Baqarah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا تداينتم بدين إلى أجل مسمى فاكتبوه. O who you have faith, when you contract a debt for a specified term, write it down. Last week we talked about the difference between dain and qard. Every qard is a dain, but not every dain is a qard. Dain is something that you have to pay back to someone, whether you have borrowed it or whether you have made a contract and you have to pay the amount later. There is a hadith from Abdullah ibn Abbas rahmatullah alayh who says إن الآية وردت في السلام خاصة وكان يقول أشهد أن الله أباح السلام المضمون إلى أجل معلوم وأنزل فيه أطول آية من كتابه وتلا هذه الآية. Abdullah ibn Abbas, it is reported from him that this is only about salam. Salam was a contract that you bought something, you paid in advance, but you had the commodity later on. For example, especially when you wanted to buy a harvest of someone. Now the harvest would have come, for example, in autumn, but you paid in spring the whole amount, and you said, I buy all your harvest, for example, whatever it is, and you pay that. This is Bay'us Salam. One example of that. Now, Ibn Abbas says this dain which is mentioned in this verse is only about this type of contract. However, probably the commentators and jurists have not accepted that this may be from Abdullah ibn Abbas, or even if it's a view of Abdullah ibn Abbas, they have not accepted it, and they have actually considered the verse to be general about every type of contract in which there is a dain, in which there is something that you have to pay to someone else, whether it's a borrowing, whether it's a contract or whatever. So it says that when you make a contract like this, a contract of debt for a specified term, write it down. Faktubuhu is like a command, isn't it? Because it's an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's an imperative, and the imperative verbs usually imply wujub, the obligation. However, because there's another verse which comes after this, which says, فَإِنْ أَمِنَ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا, if some of you trust someone else, it doesn't matter if you don't write it down. So it is understood that this command is not for obligation, it's recommended. It's recommended you do this because it would remove all sorts of conflict and argument later on. And it's very amazing that for this recommended matter, this longest verse in the Quran has been revealed. And one thing we understand from it is that although this is not about spirituality, this is not about hereafter, this is not about Tawheed, but why the longest verse in the Quran has been revealed about it, and also in the next verse we understand that it's not even compulsory to do it. We understand from it that the social interaction in the eyes of Allah is very important to be managed in a way to remove dispute and argument. Anything we can do in society which would remove dispute and argument among people, among individuals, is highly a matter of attention by religion. And therefore, this verse is an example. Anything we can actually provide in matters of law and legislation to remove or to reduce dispute and argument in society among individuals or groups is certainly of a matter of religious value. So, إذا تداينتم بدين إلى أجل مسمى فاكتبوه. Among exegetes, as I said, mostly commentators have and jurists taken it to be for recommendation, istihbab, how, and it has been reported from companions of the Prophet like Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, and from early jurists like Hassan al-Basri, and the traditionists like Sha'bi. However, some minority groups have said that it is compulsory to write anything which you do in terms of which involves some death. As I said, the following verses: فَإِنْ أَمِنَ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا فَلْيُؤَدِّ الَّذِي أَمَانَتْهُ فَلْيُؤَدِّ الَّذِي اؤْتُمِنَ أَمَانَتَهُ. And if one of you entrust to another, let him who is trusted deliver his trust, and let him be wary of Allah. فَلْيَتَّقِ اللَّهَ رَبَّهُ. That means that this is not actually a compulsory command. وَلْيَكْتُبْ بَيْنَكُمْ كَاتِبٌ بِالْعَادْلِ. Let a writer write between you with honesty. It doesn't say let a just writer write it. وَلْيَكْتُبْ بَيْنَكُمْ كَاتِبٌ عَادِلٌ. Because adil has a specific meaning in Sharia. Adil is someone who doesn't sin, who avoids disobedience of Allah. And we know that many of the writers may not have this value in them, this quality. So, Katibun bil Adl means someone, whatever they are, whether they are adil or not adil, when they write this contract, they have to do it with justice. And this shows in many matters of disputes and litigation in the courts, whether it's for a witness, although the witness is very, very crucial in litigations to be adil. However, some jurists have said even for witnesses, and especially for this type of things, adala in the sense of like adala we want for Imam al-Jama'ah is not considered. Adala here means someone katibun bil adl, someone you know that in this specific matter would not violate the rules of justice. وَلْيَكْتُبْ بَيْنَكُمْ كَاتِبٌ بِالْعَادْلِ وَلَا يَأْبَ كَاتِبٌ أَنْ يَكْتُبَ كَمَا عَلَّمَهُ اللَّهُ. And the writers should not refuse to write as Allah has taught him. كَمَا عَلَّمَهُ اللَّهُ may mean two things. Means كَمَا أَمَرَهُ اللَّهُ, that Allah has commanded you that you have to write these contracts, and if a writer is asked to write it. Nowadays, of course, the matter is completely different. In old days, there were not many people who could write, but nowadays, of course, you go to very established offices to write such contracts. In old days, it was not like that, and maybe writers wanted a great amount of money to write these contracts. Allah says they should not refuse to write, as Allah has taught them this expertise to write. This is one meaning, كما Allah وليكتب كاتب ولا يأبى كاتب أن يكتب كما علمه الله. Two meanings for كما علمه الله. One means كما أمره الله, as Allah has commanded them that they have to write, and the other is that as Allah is the one who teaches you whatever expertise you have. ولا يأبى كاتب أن يكتب كما علمه الله فليكتب. This is for, of course, emphasis. They have to write. وَلْيُمْلِلِ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِ الْحَقِّ وَلْيَتَّقِ اللَّهَ رَبَّهُ وَلَا يَبْخَسْ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا. And let the one who incurs the debt dictate, and let him be wary of Allah, his Lord, and not diminish anything from it. Now, as these are very sort of specifically legal matters, of course, the the sort of literature of the verse is a bit more accurate in terms of legality, the one who is actually having the dain should dictate the writer, if themselves, of course, they cannot write, should dictate the writer to write it. Why? Because he is the one who incurs the debt, not the one who is giving the commodity or who is giving the amount. So to be fair and not letting any injustice be done for the person who is borrowing or who is incurring the debt, he is the one who dictates it, or his lawyer or whatever. And of course, to be just for the one who is lending or the one who is selling, وَلْيَتَّقِ اللَّهَ رَبَّهُ وَلَا يَبْخَسْ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا, and he should not diminish anything which is in that contract. And لَا يَبْخَسْ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا means, of course, they should be thankful to the one who is trusting them, giving them the money, whether in borrowing or whether in a contract. They should be, of course, thankful to the other party. And that means to be thankful is not something verbal. To be thankful means that they have to observe their right fully. We have given you the right to dictate because you are the one who are incurring the debt. However, you have to be thankful to the one who is lending or who is selling you this thing in advance, and that requires not diminishing anything. We have in Hadith, Man la yashkurullah man la yashkurun nas. Or it's a common saying that Man la yashkurul makhluq la yashkurul khaliq. Man lam yashkurul makhluq lam yashkurul khaliq. Whoever does not thank the makhluq who has done him something good has not thanked the khaliq who is, of course, the source of all these blessings. Or the hadith goes like this: La yashkurullah man la yashkurun nas. The one who does not offer thanks to the people cannot offer thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is something which should come from the heart. And if heart refuses to give thanks to the person who has done something good to you, then it would refuse to offer thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me recite a hadith here for you. It says, Man asta ma'rufan ila insanin. Man asta ma'rufan ila insanin. Fashakara al-khaliq. وقال الشكر لله وتجاهل صاحب المعروف فإن الله سبحانه لا يقبل منه الشكر حتى يشكر من أجرى المعروف على يده. Sometimes people do good to us, and we see this all from Allah. Of course, you are only a means. Even in our heart we say this. Now Allah said, I don't accept this. This person has done good to you, although everything is from me, but you have to see the one who's conducive, who is an instrument of receiving this blessing. So the hadith says that whoever done something good to a person, and the person thanks Allah and says, Ash-shukru lillah, but does not thank the person who is doing that good to him, Allah would not accept his shukr. His thanking until he thanks the one who has given them that ma'ruf or that blessing, which is of course it is from Allah, but who has done it to you, who has actually been a means for that. It is actually to honor anyone who is a means for these good things. That's why, for example, the angels are the means of bringing the blessings of Allah to this world. And every morning, for example, we say, وَصَلَّ عَلَى مَلَائِكَتَكَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ. Ya Allah, greet your angels. This is a thankfulness. Or all the time that we send salat to the Prophet and his household. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. It's a sort of thank that we are offering to Allah, that they have of course, brought this great blessing of guidance to us. There's another hadith which talks about the sort of identification of Allah with His people, with His creatures, that Allah identifies Himself with people. The hadith says that إن الله يقول يوم القيامة لعبد من عباده ما منعك إذا مرضت أن تعودني. On the day of judgment, Allah says, I was ill. Why didn't you come to visit me? Well, it's strange. I was ill. Why didn't you come to visit me? And the abd would say, سبحانك أنت أنت رب العباد لا تعلم ولا تمرض. You are the Lord. You are the one who gives all the blessings. You never would feel pain or illness. فيقول الله مرض أخوك المؤمن فلم تعده. Your faithful brother was ill. You did not visit him. فوعزتي وجلالي لو أتته لوجدتني عنده. I swear by my glory and might, had you visited him, you would have found me there. Yes, that's why I say Allah sometimes identifies Himself with us. ثم لتكفلت به حوائجك. Then, when I found you there, I would have looked after your needs. وقضيتها لك. And I would have actually fulfilled them for you. وذلك من كرامة عبدي وأنا الرحمن الرحيم. This is because every mu'min has honor with me. The honor is I honor my abd, and because you visited my abd, then I have considered that karama. وأنا الرحمن الرحيم. Now here, ولا تبخس منه شيئا, as of course these narrations are not very much connected, but some of the commentators have mentioned here to say that لا تبخس منه شيئا is a sort of thanksgiving, at least, even if you are not considering justice, is a thanksgiving to the one who is doing such favor to you. فإن كان الذي عليه الحق سفيها أو ضعيفا. This is all one verse, isn't it? I have just made these sentences into separate parts so that we do not just ignore anything from the verse. فإن كان الذي عليه الحق سفيها أو ضعيفا أو لا يستطيع أن يمله فليملل وليه بالعدل. But if the debtor be feeble-minded or weak or incapable of dictating himself, then let his guardian dictate with honesty. The same thing, بالعدل, with justice. Now, as-safi is someone who doesn't know how to spend, who doesn't know the prices of things, who doesn't know when, for example, they want to make a contract, like small children, young children as well, when they don't know how much they have to give for what commodity. So, if they are safi al-mubadhir, الذي لا يحسن التصرف في المال, cannot understand how to spend. And ضعيف is maybe if they are very ill, or young children, as they have interpreted these verses. And لا يستطيع أن يمل means, for example, they are mentally they have mental problems, or they have problem speaking, then their guardian should do it. And guardian, we have two types of guardian, waliul khas and waliul am. Waliul khas are the father and grandfathers, and waliul am is hakim shar. If someone, for example, wants to make a contract, they are safi or whatever is mentioned here, there's no father, no grandfather, someone should look after them. Now, usually the system, the government, would appoint one of their relatives to be their guardian. And if even that is not possible, the hakim shar, which is mujtahid al-adil, should look after their affair as well. So, فَلْيُمْلِلْ وَلِيُّهُ بِالْعَدْلِ, let his guardian dictate with honesty. And in addition to this, as I said, Allah wants to remove all disputes in our interactions. And this is just an example given to us. And it's good in our community, in our day-to-day interactions. If we think that tomorrow, if we are not trusting each other, as it said in the next verse, that if you trust each other, then that's fine. You don't need to write it. But if you do not trust each other, or if you feel that in future something may come up, then it is better to actually observe all these very little things. In addition to writing, وَاسْتَشْهِدُوا شَهِيدَيْنِ مِنْ رِجَالِكُمْ, and take as witness 2 witnesses from your men. So in addition to writing, you have to call 2 men who are trustful and should actually witness the contract. فَإِن لَمْ يَكُونَا رَجُلَيْنِ فَرَجُلٌ وَامْرَأَتَانِ مِمَّنْ تَرْضَوْنَ مِنَ الشُّهَدَاءِ. And if there are not 2 men, then a man and 2 women from those whom you approve as witness. أَن تَضِلَّ إِحْدَاهُمَا فَتُذَكِّرَ إِحْدَاهُمَا الْأُخْرَى. So that if one of the 2 women defaults or deviates, the other will remind her. Now, couple of things here. And of course, we have this very controversial matter of 2 women in place of 1 man. I know everyone is just expecting I don't pass over this. So, وَاسْتَشْهِدُوا شَهِدَيْنِ مِنْ رِجَالِكُمْ, it is not wajib again, as the whole thing is not wajib. Taking witnesses is not wajib as well. However, if in future people deny that document, then there are 2 witnesses to testify that. مِمَّنْ تَرْضَوْنَ مِنَ الشُّهَدَاء shows that the witnesses should be trustful to you, not trustful to the law. You should trust these. Tardawna, you who are making the contract, they are somehow pleasing you as witnesses, not others. Now, why 2 women here? First of all, we have to consider whether this testimony is bearing testimony or providing testimony. Now, there is difference between the 2, isn't it? Bearing testimony means, for example, 1 man and 2 women come, and we call them and say, would you please be our witness that we are making this contract? Okay. This is bearing testimony. Then when the dispute comes and the court is set up, is the time for providing testimony. Now, the jurists have this disagreement that for bearing testimony, of course, 2 women, as the verse is very clearly mentioning, 2 women are in place of 1 man. But is the judge obliged to call 2 women for testimony or not? Or, for example, 1 man and 1 woman would be enough for providing testimony. This is a matter of dispute as well. And secondly, bearing testimony is a responsibility, is not a right. So it's not something that we are actually depriving women of their rights. It's a responsibility, which is not a good responsibility as well. I mean, it's difficult because later on you will be involved in litigation and going to the court and all these things. And therefore, it's not something about the right, it's something about the responsibility. However, one may say why the responsibility of women should be less than responsibility of men in this matter. What the verse says about it is that the reason that the verse is talking about, that أَن تَضِلَّ إِحْدَاهُمَا فَتُذَكِّرَ إحداهما الأخرى. That if one of them تظل. Now, what does تظل mean? Usually, تظل has been translated as forgetfulness. That if one of them forget, the other one would remind. Why? Because تظل never means to forget. But why it has been translated as forget? Because then it says فتذكر. They say بقرينة تذكر, because of the context that says the other one reminds her. It means that تظل means to forget. If one of them forget, the other one would remind. And then they have justified, for example, in مجمع البيان, it says وهذا لأن النسيان يغلب على النساء أكثر مما يغلب على الرجال, because women forget more than men. Well, in our experience, even in my daily experience, I see men forget more than women, isn't it? Really, I mean, women sometimes remember the details of things that men can never remember. I tell you, my wife sometimes says things about our life that I never remember them. And these details stick to their mind. So this, and لأن النسيان يغلب على النساء أكثر مما يغلب على الرجال. I don't think it's a good justification. This is what, of course, as the translation of يَذِلُّ, as the meaning of يَذِلُّ, because of تذكر, they have taken, and then they have said, so why should two women come in place of one man? Because, of course, women forget more than men. But if we translate تَذِلُّ as deviate, not as forget. And if she deviates, the other one reminds that, no, this was not the case. You are deviating from the truth. Then, of course, all these things about nisyan and forgetfulness would go away. The other justification, which is mentioned by many other more contemporary commentators, this nisyan is for earlier commentators. But the other one, which is mentioned by more recent commentator, is that because women are emotional, and emotion is found more in women than in men. And therefore, because of the emotion, they may somehow forget things. It's true. Well, women are more emotional than men, but that doesn't mean that they would deviate in litigations because of their emotions. Marhum Mughniya says that I cannot find any justification for this except ta'abbud. See, because Allah says, okay, ta'abbud, and we accept this. My understanding is that tadal doesn't mean forget. It means deviate. Why? Because women, especially in old days and even today, are more under the pressure of their families, the husbands, the male sort of part of the community. And for example, if their husband requires, pressurize, because female are pressurized more, more prone to be pressurized than men. And this, of course, we may say in modern society this is not the case, but I say it is the case. And in older time, it was actually the case. I mean, if women wanted to go, especially in these type of litigations which involved contracts and things like that, they would have been pressurized by their husband and others who may have some interest with one of the parties. That's why here, of course, Allah says, if one of them deviates because of that pressure, of course we may say it never happens, but this is law. It may happen. It is the case. It is the sort of ruling it is a matter which happens many times in society. So two women are required in place of one man, so that this sort of factor of pressure would not have any influence in the litigation. Otherwise, there shouldn't be any difference. For example, if in matters of in mainly female matters, about welada, about hayd, other things which come into litigation, the testimony of women are absolutely acceptable. There's no testimony of men, it's testimony of the women. The testimony of women is not accepted in matters of huququllah, when we have hudud, punishment, except of course for zina, which is a different matter. Why? Because in these cases, Allah wants less witnesses, not more witnesses. If I drink, for example, alcohol, and a couple of people have seen, there is a punishment for it, isn't it? Apart from Allah's punishment on the Day of Judgment, there is a punishment in the society. And people come and testify that I did it. Allah doesn't want that to happen. Allah doesn't want people to come and testify for my sin. So it's better that we say that let's reduce the number of testimonies. So we remove one half of the society from these testimonial matters in case of huququllah. Yes, in huququllah that's different, because huququllah needs testimony. And as I said, in huququllah always two women, except from matters of female matters, two women are in place of one man. As I said, because of that factor of pressure which is always there, male domination, which was there at the time, now even male domination is there. In many societies, even if in Western societies we have removed male domination, which I don't think we have, what about our own countries, Muslim countries? What about in villages? So it is a reality, and we have to bear it in mind, and do not be so emotional, saying, why Islam gives this right, for example, that makes the two women to equal one. It's not the matter of two women equaling one man. It's a matter of making the legal procedures more just and more realistic. There are, of course, certain narrations which come, I don't know in what context. Say, for example, you should not consult the women. It's in Nahj al-Balagha, we have one hadith like that. We have ahadith from narrations like that. But these ahadith are against the Quran. And if they are against the Quran, then of course we have to either reject them or to see in which context they have come. For example, the Quran approves consultation with women. فَإِنْ أَرَادَ فِصَالًا أَنْ تَرَاضٍ مِنْهُمَا وَتَشَاوُرٍ. Men and women should consult and agree with each other. Or in Surah Talaq, وَأَتَمِرُوا بَيْنَكُمْ. Wife and husband consult with each other and then come to the right conclusion or to agreeable conclusion. So if we find these type of narrations, we have to be careful to either, we may say this, if a hadith is against the Quran, of course we reject it, or even if we think that it is not really something that we can reject, we have to see in which context that they have come. It has actually been issued. We know that Prophet is a historical matter, that Prophet, for example, in a very important matter, accepted the advice of Salama. For example, in the battle of after the peace treaty of Hudaybiyah, which they call it the Ghazwa, in Ghazwa to Hudaybiyah, the Prophet commanded the believers to offer, to slaughter their sacrifices and come out of Ihram. But of course, this was a long-lasting tradition of Hajj among the Arabs, and even after they had converted to Islam, they were not going to abandon that tradition, which had come from Ibrahim alayhi salam. And because they were still not in the Haram, and let alone being in Mina, they had not performed any Hajj rituals, they were reluctant. And Prophet became very upset, came to his tent where Salam was. Salam said, Ya Rasulullah, if I advise something, you do it first yourself, instead of telling them to do it, and they will follow. And Rasulullah said, that's a good idea. And he did. And this has become very famous about the sort of accepting the advice of his wife in this very, very important matter. So here, as I said, tadilla doesn't mean forgetfulness, so that we say women are prone to forget more than men. It means deviate. And this deviation is not because of, for example, the nature of women. It's because in the context that we are talking about, women are more prone to be pressurized than men to actually provide witness. So, ولا يأبى الشهداء. So أن تضل إحداهما فتذكر إحداهما الأخرى ولا يأبى الشهداء إذا ما دعوا. The witnesses must not refuse when they are called. That means bearing witness is something which is highly recommended, although it may involve us in later troubles, like going to the court litigation. It is highly recommended, or even لا يأبى الشهداء إذا ما دعوا. Let not the witnesses refuse when they are called. It means it is even wajib on us to actually bear witness when we are called by our brethren, by people, to witness something. We have a hadith here in Kafi, but before that, if this is wajib, and many people have said so, is wajibun ala al-kifaya. That means it is obligation on everyone until someone takes it up, and then it actually is removed from everyone's responsibility. We have a hadith from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, and it's not only one hadith, in several narrations. قال لا ينبغي لأحد إذا ما دعي إلى الشهادة ليشهد عليها أن يقول لا أشهد لكم. It is not good. Well, here it's not good, it means it's recommended. It is not good, it does not befit a person when they are called to bear witness, they say that I would not bear witness for you. Or in some of them it says, and later on when they want to provide shahada, witness, testimony, then they should not conceal it. And from Imam al-Kazim alayhi salam, it says that إذا ما دعاك الرجل تشهد له على دين أو حق لم ينبغ لك أن تقاعس عنه. If a person calls you to testify for a debt or for a right, whatever it is, it does not suit you to shun and do not accept. Ayatollah Khoei actually has issued fatwa on this in Minhaj al-Salihin. He says that there is no dispute that after bearing witness, providing witness is wajib, because this is a right. And so if you have actually been witness to something, maybe bearing witness is not wajib, but providing witness afterward, providing testimony, bearing testimony is not wajib, but providing testimony is wajib. And then he says that, and also it is aqrab. Aqrab means that according to all the sources, it looks to me that this is the stronger view, that even bearing testimony is wajib if, of course, there is no fear of harm or anything like that. So, وَلَا يَعْبَ الشُّهَدَاء إِذَا مَا دُعُوا وَلَا تَسْأَمُوا أَن تَكْتُبُوهُ صَغِيرًا أَوْ كَبِيرًا إِلَى أَجَلِهِ. And do not consider it wearisome to write it down, whether it be a big or a small sum, This is again another emphasis that Allah wants to remove all dispute from the society. ذَلِكُمْ أَقْسَطُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. Inshallah, we'll leave this for our next session. وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِهِ الطَّاهِرِينَ.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. We have about 20 minutes for further discussion, please. Any brothers, sisters?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I've got a point, Sheikh, and a question. I agree with you 100% in terms of the interpretation of the Quran, in terms of the value and the role that the woman plays. With that woman, we wouldn't be here. And more Western society and companies and board of directors, they're trying to have the inclusion of women amongst the board, to have a different opinion and to have a different, if you like, tone of way of looking at the company and the way the company goes about their business. So, I don't think there is anyone in today's mind that can dilute or, if you like, reduce the value that women can add. But what I think it is because of women occupancy and the woman, if you like, duties in bringing up the family and looking after the house and looking after the husband and looking after the children. I think that makes it a bit difficult to go to a court today to witness, to go to lawyers, to listen, to do the investigation, as much as the man has to do. And that's not to take value from the woman, I must add. That was the point. The question is, every now and then we see Al-Quran, Kitab Allah, dives into quite minutiae detail, into the detail that we've just seen in this ayah. But in other areas, we don't see that. Subhanahu wa ta'ala goes into the occasion to things and does not give much detail. Is there any reason behind that? And what is the, if you like, the interpretation that we should understand the way the Quran is? And I know the Quran, I've said it before, it's not a book of law and judgment and books of rules. Shukran.
Thank you very much. Well, I think in every aspect, Quran goes into details, but because this is something which requires meticulous details, the Quran has given that attention to it. For example, about hereafter, the Quran goes into much details about description of paradise, description of hell, things that may not be even necessary for as we may think of it. About Tawheed, of course, Quran goes into details. About history of past nations. In Surah Ibrahim, for example, there's a very, very interesting account of history of nations given by Musa alayhi salam to his people. ألم يأتكم نبأ الذين من قبلكم قوم نوح وعاد وثمود والذين من قبلهم من بعدهم لا يعلمه إلا الله. And then it goes إذ جاءتهم رسلهم بالبينات then قالت لهم رسلهم أفي الله شك, and then they reply. This account of history, which actually takes it as a wholesale matter, that every nation acted actually exactly similar to each other in response to prophets, goes into those details. But I agree with you, this verse is very meticulous. And as I said, it wants to indicate that these social matters, although religion is about spirituality hereafter, but you should not be ignorant and negligent of these details, because when dispute comes, spirituality goes, isn't it? So these are sort of introduction or preparation for having a spiritual life. That's why this meticulous sort of thing, which is not even wajib, Although we do it in our ordinary life, I mean, for example, buying a house or buying a car is all registered, everything is legally done. It has been established now. In those days, it was not established. It was just people, if they wanted to. But now it's established, and it's established because of all these sort of advice that we have received.
Thank you, Sheikh. Any sisters? Any other brother?
Shaykh, Assalamu alaikum. You were talking that maybe the pressures on women are less in this society. Evidence shows that that's probably not true. You can only see in the most liberal country, America, this Harvey Weinstein episode, and how women, even today, who are in powerful positions, who are wealthy, who can afford are still being manipulated and dominated. And in societies today, you can see the statistics are there that women have to work harder, do better to earn less. So the idea that they're not being oppressed or manipulated or situation is not difficult for them is just not true even here.
Marhaban bin Asiruna. Thank you so much.
Any sisters? Any brother? Nisa?
Alaikum salam.
Just a question on. Thanks. Just a question on zina. You mentioned very briefly. You said that to reduce the number of testimonies or witnesses, female accounts are not taken into consideration. Would you mind
In
just?
Huququllah. In Huququllah, but in zina, yes, 3 witnesses, 3 men and 2 women are accepted. Because zina wants 4 men, isn't it, to testify that the act of zina has happened, which is very, very rare. You know, Allah made this law in a way which makes it so difficult to testify against someone that they have committed adultery. But in zina, in contrast to other huququllah, because zina is also huququllah as well. So other than other huququllah, the testimony of 3 men and 2 women, instead of the 4th man, is accepted. Why? Because women are involved there as well. In zina, of course, the women are involved. So in this case, the testimony of 2 women in place of 1 man is accepted as well. Otherwise, in other huququllah, is not accepted.
And is that for both when male and female are responsible, or is that just for one specific gender that's responsible for the crime?
Well, zina is when, of course, both are responsible, but the other one would be actually violent transgression, which, again, the same thing, the same testimony is available, but of course the punishment is much, much more severe there. And there's no punishment for woman who is violently being assaulted, but the man would be, of course, the punishment will be more severe.
Thank you, Sheikh. Any sisters? No, Nisa?
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. I think you tried your very best to interpret this ayah as best as you possibly can and explain on both sides. I could see your eye movements. You're trying to appease this side of the house and this side as well. But if I was sitting on that side, I will still not be convinced about all the arguments put forward.
Well, if you are not convinced, it's just ta'abbud. You have to accept it
Yeah.
because God says it.
So that's exactly what I'm about to say, that I accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have his very absolute reason for making that. But really, no arguments that I've heard here on the floor really convinces me. However, having said that, if I think about it, if there are 2 men as witnesses of an event, and if they both don't agree, then we are scuppered, aren't we? So one says this way, and the other says, no, it happened that way. Whereas if there is 1 man and 2 women, then we got a panel of 3. Do all of them have 1 vote each? So at least 2 people would say, no, it happened this way, and 1 said it happened this way.
Is it convincing? It's good. I mean, it's good interpretation as well. You have more witnesses there. But again, the question wouldn't go away. Why, for example, not 3 women instead of 1 man and 2 women? Why not, for example, 3 men? Yeah. If we want to have more witnesses than that. Yeah. But it's another good
Just one of the experience of my own in my life. I have sat on many tribunals, and tribunals are a group of 3 people. It's always 3. And you hear the story. So I've sat on tribunals relating to benefits, relating to registration of, or cancellation of registration of nursing homes or care homes or whatever. And and I've sat on very many, and my own personal observations have been, when the tribunal consists of 2 women and 1 man, as opposed to 2 men and 1 woman, the flow is very comfortable for the people on the other side. In fact, once you were talking, I was trying to Google here to see if there is any correlation between gender composition of tribunals and outcome in sense, how many of the outcomes are then appealed higher up, or how many are accepted. I just very briefly, I thought that there is actually a relationship between gender, female gender outcome are more acceptable outcomes. So I don't know, I haven't searched it fully.
Yeah, it's a feeling. I mean, sometimes these feelings are right, you know. And bear in mind, until 16th, 17th centuries, no society allowed women to witness, to testify, or to bear witness. I mean, 1400 years ago, in that very, very patriarchal society of Mecca and Medina, such a ruling that 2 women can come and testify was very, very progressive. As I said, for example, in Judaism, there is no such a thing that women can testify, at least in religious terms. But for another 10 centuries after that, no society except Muslim societies were accepting testimony of women. So that shows the importance of this matter.
So one can add to that, just like slavery wasn't banned overnight, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attempt was to slowly, gradually bring this in. And hopefully as time goes along, Muslim societies will be sophisticated and cultured enough to actually accept that there is equality there. So today slavery is banned, yeah? I mean,
yes.
So maybe today our interpretation should be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his own wisdom just set the tone, so to speak. And we, as sophistication of the society, have to now move towards what is right.
That's up to Mujtahideen to decide about that.
Thank you. Any sisters? Okay. Any sisters? Good point, but sisters, any sisters? Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Alaikum salam.
Shaykh, in Surah Al-Dahr, the Ahlul Bayt did not turn to be thanked for what they did. So I always was in the impression that if you did good for the sake of Allah, you really don't want to be thanked. You don't. If somebody says thank you, say please don't thank me. It's not something you want somebody to thank you for. If you do somebody a favor, you really from the heart, you don't really want them to feel so obliged and thankful to you, because you're not doing it.
These are 2 different things. For the one who gives, of course, you don't want thanks. You want لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. We don't want any reward or any thanks from you. It's all from Allah. But the other person, are they obliged as well to thank? Are they not obliged to thank you? Well, that's their duty to thank. So, although you may do it only for the sake of Allah, the other person, and that shows actually if they do not thank you, it means they don't have that quality of thankfulness in them, and they cannot thank Allah enough as well.
Any brothers? Yeah. Can you pass the mic in front, or maybe?
And whatever we do is from Allah, but Allah Himself thanks us, isn't it?
In the salawat, he also thanks the
Yeah, we
Prophet.
also thank us. That's right.
Sheikh, on Dr. Nizar's point, just on point that the tribunal or the magistrates in this case are very different from witnesses. They're lawgivers and law interpreters, as opposed to, there's no question of them being under any pressure. But on the other point, the pressure you're mentioning, and that does exist, I think very clearly you have a balance between either people being under pressure to change their testimony, and perhaps an injustice being committed. And at that point, maybe Allah in His wisdom has said, you know what, we can't have an injustice regardless of people's sensibilities. And that's probably a good reason. That's the only way I can think of understanding it.
Yes. Well, this pressure is a reality, actually. The pressure is a reality. If, for example, my wife wants to go and testify for something which would hurt me or my friend, I certainly would pressurize her. in some way, to twist, or to not say the whole truth. As I said, in old days it was even more in patriarchal societies. And as you said, nowadays even, it hasn't gone away, certainly.
And there also could be one more point, which, to be fair, you did mention years ago, that maybe Allah wants you, when you choose witnesses, don't choose the women and don't bother them, because tomorrow they may have a problem.
Yes.
So
that's
in the
true.
beginning, make it a point to choose people who would be able to
Yeah.
handle that.
And that's why it says, فَإِن لَمْ يَكُونَ رَجُلَيْن فَرَجُلٌ. If you couldn't find two men, then go for one man and two women. So this is also a very important matter, important point, that we should not bother women with these things, as it was pointed out by you as well, that women have other responsibilities at home. It's not good to involve them in such social matters. But, today this idea of equality of rights, although this is not a right, this is a responsibility, is somehow infatuated people with and have made them to argue about these things very much.
Thank you. Any sisters? Yeah.
If you have not given these rights, what you are saying at present, that you are involved with a household responsibility, but it's at a certain period of life. After that, you are free to give witness as well, isn't it? So you feel you have been deprived of that right.
It's not a right, it's a responsibility. I never want to be called as a witness to something, It may be a duty and responsibility, but I don't think it's a right to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other brother? Shaykh, you said that to bear a witness, we can have two women and one man, and to provide a witness, it's enough to have one woman.
It depends on the judge.
Okay, fine.
According to those who say this is the case, not everyone agrees with that. Maybe the judge, if he hears the testimony of one man and one woman, is convinced that the woman is not pressurized, for example, doesn't need to call the other woman to come and testify. So the verse is about bearing witness. It's not about providing witness. And that's why some say that in providing witness, the verse is not actually saying that you need two women to testify.
Okay, but my main question is that there are so many documents nowadays that a woman has to sign as a witness. For example, a wife signs as one woman as a witness. Then, because this is just a recommendation in the Quran. So in actual reality, we can have one witness as a woman who is bearing the witness. Is it not?
Yeah, but if you go, for example, to an Islamic court, they may say this is not enough because we needed one man and two women. Of course, in ordinary life, when there's no litigation or when you go to British court, they accept it. But in an Islamic court, they may say that this is not enough. We needed one man and two women to testify. Okay. It's not a must that you have to do. It's all when you actually dispute and want to go to litigation that these things matter.
Okay. Thank you. Any other last one, my brothers, sisters, anybody? No? No, last one? Okay. Thank you, Muhammad wa ali Muhammad Salawat.